Chuck Todd is mad at Joe Biden, and Tim Kaine is mad at Joe Biden. And now those soy boys who do that Pod Save America and used to write the bilge that Obama spewed, they're mad at Joe Biden, too.
Obama
Here's Tommy
boys.
Vietor.
President Biden lied and repeatedly lied and said he wouldn't pardon Hunter or commute a sentence. He had his press secretary lie on his behalf. Biden's supporters held up Joe Biden's refusal to pardon Hunter as an example of his commitment to the rule of law in contrast with Trump. But NBC News reported that when they decided to put this out there and say that that Biden wasn't going to pardon his son, actually Biden and his top aides knew that it was still an open question. And so now everyone looks stupid. Everyone looks like they're full of shit. And Republicans are going to use this to argue that it was politics as usual when Democrats warned about Trump's corruption or threat to the rule of law or, the threat to democracy. And I think that's the piece of this I am most frustrated with, which is Joe Biden looking like a typical lying politician. And I think that leads to a cynical feeling that all politicians are bad and they're all the same and that this is just par for the course. And so I'm not really worried that.
Yeah. You're supposed to, be better at lying than Joe Biden turned out to be, which is, why for 40 years they tried to keep him on the sidelines as his presidential ambitions far outstripped his capacities. But, 2020 happened and he drew an inside straight. What are you going to do? Now we're here where you're making the people who think they're the smartest guys in the room look like they're stupid and full of bull jive, which of course they are. By the way, it doesn't sound like we're done with making people like those Obama soy boys look stupid and full of bull jive, because there's talk of preemptive pardons for Tony Fauci.
Oh, yeah.
Adam Schiff. Maybe others.
Maybe Biden himself.
Liz Cheney.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's one. Yeah.
I saw even this morning that Jesse Jackson Sr., not a reverend, is asking Biden to pardon Jesse Jackson Jr.
Well, everyone's. If he's going to pardon his own son. I mean,
Hey,
listen,
get in line.
They almost did a coup d'etat on Biden. They blindsided him. And so he's taking it all down with him. Screw it.
Lie, though. Boy, for Obama flax to suggest Joe Biden is lying. Oh, ooh, ouch, harsh. For more on all this, we're pleased to be joined by John Hinderaker, president of the Center for the American Experiment, contributor to Powerline, powerlineblog.com. John, thank you as always.
Hey, great to be with you, Dan.
So, how about those pardons that may still be in the offing in addition to the controversy swirling around the Hunter one?
Well, I don't know, Dan. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see a whole lineup of future pardons coming. There haven't been criminal charges actually brought against the people that you just mentioned. I mean, Hunter was in a completely different category, not just because he's Joe's son, but he was actually convicted, by a jury and has pled guilty, and he needs a pardon. And there are several elements of this that I find ironic, Dad. I mean, one of them is the pretense that just now, only now, has Joe Biden been revealed as a liar, right?
Yes. Shocking.
Okay. Yeah, shocking, right? His entire career has been corrupt. But the other thing, this story has been frustrating me for how many years now have we been hearing about Hunter Biden? And the thing that I've been saying over and over again all this time is that there's nothing about this story that is really about Hunter. The press dutifully will talk about Hunter's overseas business interests and his foreign business deals and so on. Well, what business was Hunter Biden ever in? He was never in business. He never was associated with a company that manufactured a product or that provided services. The only service that Hunter Biden ever dealt in was the service of getting access to Joe Biden when he was the vice president. And Reuters thought he had some kind of influence. Influence peddling was the only business that Hunter ever was engaged in, and the influence wasn't Hunter's. He was a nobody. The influence was Joe's. And the story here is that Joe Biden is an unbelievably corrupt politician who pulled in, we know of, at least about $24 million. That Joe Biden, not Hunter, Joe Biden pulled in for himself and various family members.
Well, that's the various family members you mentioned. I mean, that's, maybe I can see where he wouldn't do anything preemptory with Fauci and Schiff and some of the others, if for no other reason than if the Trump Justice Department did go after them legitimately, they could still claim lawfare and all that. And so maybe that serves them politically in some way. But for the family members, it's not just Hunter. Those IRS whistleblowers, Shapley and Ziegler, they talked about family members. And so I wouldn't think that, for example, brother Jim is out of the woods, and maybe some other Biden family members that were beneficiaries of Hunter's foreign affairs. So maybe there is still more family business to tend to.
I don't know, Dan. I doubt it. I think, well, for one thing, I don't know what the statute of limitations is on these various crimes. It was running on Hunter, right? A lot of the worst things that Hunter did, the statute of limitations had gone by the time he actually got charged with anything. I just don't know whether Jim Biden is exposed at this point or not. I mean, I think one of Biden's granddaughters got money put into her checking account.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
I mean,
Well, everybody gets
Lord,
a taste.
I don't think that the Trump DOJ though is going to be going after those family members. I'd be surprised.
Well, do you think President Biden will pardon himself on the way out, along with Liz Cheney, Dr. Fauci, and others?
I doubt it. I mean, the idea of a president pardoning himself, nobody really knows. Does that work? We're in uncharted territory here. He might do those things, but honestly, I doubt it. I don't think that he believes that he is in that kind of peril, or that Anthony Fauci is in that kind of peril. I'd be surprised if we see, we may see some more controversial pardons, I mean, like the Mark Rich sort and others that Bill Clinton did. I don't think we're going to be seeing anything at that level.
Okay, we shall see.
Crazy election cycle, though, so anything's possible.
Pete Hegseth finally came out fighting yesterday after a sit-down with Trump, he reportedly, per his conversation with Megyn Kelly, that Trump is still backing him, and it's time to punch back against the D.C. press corps and these slime merchants. And it seems like, I know there's some wobbly Republican senators, and it's the usual suspects, but it seems like Hegseth and his surrogates now unleashed could put him back on stable ground in terms of the probability of confirmation. What do you think?
Well, I sure hope so, Dan. Pete is a friend of mine, first of all. He's from my state of Minnesota. And everything we're talking about here, number one, it's all anonymous accusations. Nobody has come forward publicly and actually said any of these things, let alone testified to them in front of a Senate committee. And number two, Lindsey Graham flip-flopped to the matter of about 4 hours. He was quoted yesterday as saying that these allegations are deeply troubling, and people took that as really a nail in the coffin. But then he turned around last night and he said, no, these are anonymous accusations having to do with Hegseth's personal life, and anonymous accusations don't count. So, I guess we're looking at Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski. There are rumors that Joni Ernst might want the job herself, might not vote for Pete. I don't know. But what my own opinion, Dan, is that every Republican senator should vote for all of these Trump nominees, just like in 2021, every Democrat senator voted for every nominee that Joe Biden put forward.
The matter of the Trump administration coming into focus, I mean, this is a perfect segue. Are you, just setting aside, yes, this is the team Trump wants, and so Republicans should fall in line and support these identified team members. But are you excited about the team that Trump has put together, and when comparing it to, say, the team he put together in 2017?
Well, I am, Dan, for a couple of reasons. Number one, I like the nominees, and Pete Hegseth is a good example of that. But number two, I like the fact that Trump has a team. In his first term, it took him half the term to get his administration staff. Mm-hmm. This time, he understands the urgency of getting his team in place. He has way more contacts, just knows a lot more people than he did 8 years ago. And so I'm just delighted to see that he's getting the administration staffed, that they're going to hit the ground on January 20th. And I like his choices. There's a few of them you could quarrel with, but I think Hegseth is a pretty good example. He's not being selected as Secretary of Defense because he's the world's greatest bureaucrat, to run one of the biggest agencies anywhere in the world. They'll probably appoint a couple of undersecretary bean counters, to look after the $840 billion. But we have a crisis going on with wokeness in the military. Pete Hegseth actually wrote a book about how wokeness is damaging the military, and recruitment. Recruitment is at unsustainable levels. And so my hope is that a guy like Pete, who's young, who himself is a war hero, who's charismatic, is going to be the face of the Defense Department and is going to be the recruiter in chief, telling young people, hey, it's safe to enlist now. The Army's under new management. So, I like a lot of these picks, and I'm delighted to see that he's making them.
So you're up there in Minnesota, as you mentioned. Have you brought donuts and coffee over to Tim Walz's house and check in on him, see how he's doing?
$17,000 a month because the governor's mansion is under construction.
Yeah. Oh man. So Tim Walz embarrassed himself on the national stage, but you don't see acknowledgement of that in the press here in Minnesota. It's kind of comical. I mean, the Star Tribune, which is the dominant newspaper in the state, is now run by a former member of the Tim Walz administration, one of his cabinet officers, and they talk as though Walz had acquitted himself honorably and did a terrific job.
Yes.
And there's talk of Walz maybe running for a third term in 2026, which he's eligible to do. I think he's wounded. I think he's damaged. My organization actually just polled some things about the election. One of the questions we asked is, did Walz being on the ticket make you more likely or less likely to vote for Kamala Harris? It was 23% more likely, 24% less likely, the rest don't care. So, that's not any kind of a big outpouring of support for Tim Walz.
Do you think he's going to have a strong Republican challenger, though, if he decides to run in 2026?
I'm trying to recruit one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Dan, you want to move to Minnesota?
I'm definitely in that don't care about Tim Walz camp, I got to tell you. But just on Minnesota, because it's interesting, so there's so much hope that Minnesota could be in play this time around, and we've seen this play out before. And sometimes Minnesota does things that are more than one standard deviation from normal, like Jesse the Body. But and then you look at the legislative level, and you see that the state house is very competitive. In fact, it's so competitive that the report was Republicans narrowly lost a chance to take over the state house after a race that went on, where the count went on for weeks, went the Democrats' way. What's the landscape there in that particular state house race and the administration of elections in Minnesota?
Well, right now the Minnesota House is exactly evenly split, and the parties are planning a power-sharing agreement that they're negotiating right now in the House. Meanwhile, the Senate, the Minnesota Senate, is controlled by the Democrats by one vote. One of their senators is going on trial for burglary next month, and that could lead to a special election. So you're absolutely right. At the legislative level, Minnesota is very evenly split, but the Republicans have had a terrible time electing statewide candidates. The last statewide Republican to win was Tim Pawlenty in 2006. So that's a real losing streak. Donald Trump got 1.5 million votes, the most votes any Republican has ever gotten in the state of Minnesota. So we Minnesota Republicans, hope springs eternal.
Maybe Sam Darnold will run or something. Maybe you can get Sam Darnold to retire from the Vikings and run. I don't know. John Hendrick.
Frank Tarkington.
I don't.
Well,
is he still in
Frank's a
Minnesota?
little old, but he's a hardcore right winger.
Is he still in Minnesota?
I don't know. Probably not.
Yeah,
Probably
I don't
not.
think so.
His
Yeah,
daughter
you go somewhere warm at some point. John Hinderaker, President and Senator of the American Experiment, contributor to Powerline blog, powerlineblog.com. John, thanks as always.
Great to be with you, Dan.
Thank you, too. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Better is around the corner in 2025. Feeling better, of course, getting rid of joint pain for once and for all. And QC Kinetics is where it's at. Their patients are able to walk up and down the stairs,
sit and get back up, they can finally sleep. Wouldn't it be great to feel normal again? And that could be you. So call QC Kinetics now, today. Say goodbye to shoulder, knee, hip, and back pain. Saturday appointments available, no downtime. Just imagine a new year without achy joints. QC Kinetics uses the healing properties of your own body to attack the root cause of your pain. If you've been told surgery is your best or only option, you deserve a second opinion. Call QC Kinetics. The consultation is free, and you can use HSA and FSA dollars. Live your best life in 2025. Get started now. Call 312-809-5955. That's 312-809-5955.